Tom Brady, Steve Young, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Eli Manning. Those are likely some of the first names to come to mind when you think of the greatest Super Bowl performances of all time. But there's another name that belongs on that list. It's been all but forgotten, not even a decade since he burst onto the scene in Super Bowl 51. The man I'm talking about is James White, who, despite putting on an all-time performance in the greatest Super Bowl comeback of all time, was to see himself benched in the Super Bowl just 2 short years later. Throughout the 60-year history of the Super Bowl, there's yet to be another player who has so quickly risen from an unproven talent to the focal point of a Super Bowl winning offense. What made James White's performance all that more special is that it helped complete the greatest Super Bowl comeback of all time. James White was never crowned Super Bowl MVP, with Tom Brady instead receiving the honor for the 4th time in his career. Brady's stellar playing leadership cannot be understated in terms of their contributions to the eventual victory. Although he played a key role in helping the Patriots rally from a 28-3 deficit, James White's role in that game has all but faded from public consciousness, turning what should be one of the most celebrated Super Bowl debuts of all time into a piece of NFL history that has been largely forgotten. James White has a history of being on dominant football teams, dating back to long before his NFL days, with his high school team, St. Thomas Aquinas Raiders, winning the national championship in 2008. Coming out of high school, White was seen as a rather middle-of-the-road prospect, being ranked only 70th in his entire class of running backs, which was good enough to land him a spot at the University of Wisconsin. White came onto the college scene and immediately established himself as a player capable of shifting the tide of games or even seasons.
He sets up the screen behind it to James White, and he's in the open field, right down the sideline. Into the end zone for the Wisconsin touchdown. He's going to take the direct snap this time and take off right inside the 5, dances his way in.
Well, they can call it right here if they get the stop of James White, and he bursts up the middle, and James White has the first down and more. James White inside the 20, the 10, and the touchdown.
Straight ahead, now outside. Touchdown.
This is White. Look out. There he goes. To the house. Touchdown.
His freshman year in 2010, he was named the Big Ten Freshman of the Year as he was able to help his team reach the 2011 Rose Bowl, which they ultimately lost by a mere 2 points. Despite never replicating the success of that first year, White remained a solid option in college, yet was not expected to be drafted early in the upcoming 2014 NFL Draft, if at all, as pre-draft projections saw him as a 7th-round pick or undrafted free agent. This was only reinforced by his official NFL.com prospect grade of 5.5, the lowest possible grade a qualifying player can receive, and one which projected him as an undrafted free agent. For some context, even players who are projected to be stuck at the bottom of a team's roster or practice squad players are ranked more highly than the 5.5. That made it all the more surprising when the New England Patriots selected him in the 4th round of the 2014 draft with the 130th pick. The Patriots team which White was drafted into was at that time one of the most dominant teams in the league, being led by the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. Due to this, there was little need for White in his rookie season, and he hardly played, accumulating a measly 38 rushing yards in his rookie campaign, a far cry from his later numbers. The 2015 season was a big step up for White, as his receiving yards jumped up to 410 on the season, although his rushing yards remained disappointingly stagnant. The 2016 season finally gave White a chance to showcase his full capabilities, as starting running back and strong passing back Dion Lewis was injured. This season showcased his abilities as a solid passing back, with him putting up over 500 receiving yards, being one of 4 running backs league-wide to do so, although the focus on developing him as a receiving back meant his rushing game again fell to the wayside, with only 166 yards on 39 carries. The Patriots entered the 2016 playoffs as the number 1 seed in the AFC and the unrivaled favorites to make it out. As expected, the Patriots won the AFC, with White being given few chances to contribute, with his total yards in the playoffs sitting at a mere 27, all of which came from receptions. The Patriots' opponent in the Super Bowl was the Atlanta Falcons, led by league MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, Matt Ryan, a formidable opponent that posed a major threat for the Pats. The game got off to a slow start, being scoreless at the end of the first quarter, before the Falcons erupted in the second quarter, scoring 21 points.
Freeman, what a cut! Touchdown, Atlanta! End zone, pass is caught for the touchdown. Austin. Falcons overload the right side of the Patriots offensive line. Pass is picked. Intercepted. Robert Alford. He's gone. There are no flags. And the Falcons add to their lead. Alford with a pick six.
So while the most the Patriots could muster was a measly 3.
Good snap. Good hold. Kick is good.
At this point, it already seems as if the pass game might be over, and any doubt of their impending demise was put to rest when the Falcons extended their lead to 28-3. With mere 22 minutes and 31 seconds of game time left, the pass to pull off whatever last-ditch efforts they could make. White, like nearly the entire Patriots roster at this point, had nothing groundbreaking and was playing by all means a pretty average game of football, which simply wouldn't cut it in the Super Bowl. But then, slowly and almost invisibly, the tide of the game began to shift, beginning with a 13-play, 75-yard drive that ended in a 5-yard receiving touchdown by White that was unfortunately marred by a missed PAT-directed effort, leaving the score at 28-9 for Matt.
Brady flushed out, will run and get it and slide. They run it again. Blunt, right side, is going to get the first down. Now they'll throw. Pass is caught. That's White. Touchdown.
For many players on a similar career trajectory to White, scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl can be a career-crowning achievement, no matter the ultimate result of the game. But for White and the Patriots, this was only the beginning, the most electric comeback in NFL history. The game started back up with a failed onside kick on the Pats, and just to add insult to injury, a foul called on the Patriots moved the ball 10 yards closer to their goal line than the Falcons' near field goal range at the very beginning of the drive. However, following a strong defensive performance, the Falcons were forced to punt the ball to begin the fourth quarter. Despite a complete lack of momentum for the Falcons, the Pats had no easy task in front of them. Still down 19 and forced to start the drive on their own 13-yard line with only 15 minutes left to stage the comeback.
Bounces it, has a first down. Now 2nd and 10, pass caught. Mitchell again. They're going to the rookie. Brady from the shotgun, pass is caught.
Following a strong drive by Brady, the Pats marched down the field but came up short, having to settle for a field goal, leaving the Falcons with a 16-point lead with under 10 minutes to play. As the ball returned to the hands of Atlanta, the Pats defense was unstoppable, forcing a fumble on only the 3rd play of the drive that left them just outside the red zone.
Hightower knocked it out, and Branch recovers for the Patriots. Brady, pass caught. That's Mitchell. Amendola.
Brady made sure to capitalize on this with a few quick plays that culminated in a touchdown, with White making good on the 2-point conversion just after. Suddenly, the Falcons were up by just 8 points, while there were still only 5 minutes and 56 seconds for the Pats to catch up, and any points from the Falcons would almost certainly seal their victory. Just over a minute into the drive, the Falcons were placed on the Pats' 22-yard line on first down, giving them a high chance of a touchdown and nearly guaranteeing a field goal, barring a turnover. The Falcons wasted this golden opportunity, however, as a clutch sack from defensive end Trey Flowers and a holding call on Falcons' offensive tackle Jake Matthews put them into a dire 3rd and 33 position on the Pats' 45-yard line, no longer in range for an easy field goal. An incomplete pass on the next play meant that the ball was heading back to New England with only 3.5 minutes and 2 timeouts to march 91 yards down the field for a chance to tie the game. Over the next 2 minutes, the Pats barraged the Falcons' defense with plays from wide receivers Chris Hogan, Malcolm Mitchell, Julian Edelman,
comes down with a football, and they're saying it's a catch. Comes down with it. Oh, that's a catch.
And Danny Amendola put them on the Falcons' 21-yard line for the 2-minute warning struck.
On first down, Brady.
2 more clutch plays allowed White to gain yards and place the ball on the 1-yard line with 58 seconds left to play.
From the 8, Brady finds his man. That's James White. What a game he's had.
The next play was a run by White that resulted in a 1-yard gain and a touchdown, the second of the game thus far.
Pass. Amendola. Flag is down.
After a 2-point conversion to tie up the game, the Pats had gone on a 25-0 run in just 22 minutes, tying the game up just before the end of regulation. There was enough time left on the clock for the Falcons to attempt a last-ditch drive to win the game in regulation, which came up short and led to a punt to the Pats with mere seconds left on the clock.
Good snap. Not much of a rush and a high hanging punt. Fair catch by Edelman at the 35.
With time for only one play before the end of regulation, the Pats were unable to put anything together, meaning the game was going to overtime for the first time in Super Bowl history. It's important to note that at this point in time, both teams were not guaranteed a possession of the ball during overtime, meaning that the first team to receive the ball could seal the game with a touchdown. This is exactly what the Pats were going for, as they won the coin toss and elected to receive the ball, giving them the chance to put the game out of reach for a long time. Brady was on fire during overtime, completing passes to White.
It's White out of the backfield.
Amendola,
Sideline. What a throw!
and Hogan.
Brady. Pass is caught. Hogan.
After a short loss of yards by White, the Pats rebounded with a 15-yard gain by Edelman
Pass is caught.
and a 10-yard gain by White shortly after.
Flip it to White. Looking for blocks. Getting blocks inside the 20. Out of bounds at the 15.
With New England sitting on Atlanta's 15-yard line, it seemed as if the game might be over. And after a pass interference call on Atlanta's Devondre Campbell, the Pats set a mere 2 yards away from Super Bowl history. The next play was a pass that was deflected and nearly intercepted, but luckily for New England, ended up as just an incomplete pass. On 2nd and 2, Brady gave the ball to White, who ran the ball the final 2 yards into the Falcons' end zone, completing the most historic comeback in Super Bowl history and capping off a 31-0 run that all took place in less than 30 minutes of game time. White ended the game with 20 points off of 3 touchdowns and 1 2-point conversion, a Super Bowl record that was recently tied by Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts in Super Bowl 57. But not only did he set the then record for most points in a single Super Bowl, he also set the record for most receptions with 14 and most receiving yards by a running back with 110 in his historic performance. Despite putting on one of the all-time great Super Bowl performances and the most legendary comeback in Super Bowl history, the Super Bowl MVP went not to White but to Tom Brady. While Brady was understandably seen as the driving force behind the comeback, leading the Pats to their 5th Super Bowl in a monumental fashion, White scored 20 of the Patriots' 34 total points and did so in only his 3rd year in the league on the biggest stage in football. To deny the way that Brady led the Pats during their comeback would be a disrespect to the great game he played. It would be equally disrespectful to not acknowledge James White as the Super Bowl MVP. Although Brady went on to win the Super Bowl MVP, he himself has said that he believes White deserved it more, with others echoing the same sentiment at the time. Despite the recognition he earned immediately after the game, James White quickly faded back into relative irrelevancy in the league. White began to be utilized less and less, and just 2 years after his Super Bowl 51 performance. In Super Bowl 53, rookie Sony Michel became the Pats' first option, leaving White in a position where he was unable to contribute anything meaningful. White never reached the heights of his Super Bowl 51 glory again, playing a few more seasons of respectable football before suffering a hip injury early into the 2021 season and eventually retiring in 2022 after 8 seasons in the league. James White's performance in Super Bowl 51 is quite frankly an anomaly, and is unlikely to ever be repeated. While his stats help paint the picture of his dominance, I recommend going and rewatching or watching the game for the first time, as I can only do so much to explain the impact he had and how impossible it seemed to stop him whenever he took possession of the ball. In the grand scheme of NFL greats, James White is a relative nobody, and yet for a single game on the biggest stage in the sport, he put on a display of freak athleticism and skill we'd never seen from him before or since, making him, in my humble opinion, both the unsung hero of Super Bowl 51 and its true MVP.
And it's White out of the backfield. James White trying to tiptoe. Deion Jones on the stop. Fake it to Hogan, flip it to White, looking for blocks. Getting blocks inside the 20, out of bounds at the 15. Toss to White.